Special Operations Training Detachment, SOTD West, Burro Team. Coming at you from NTC, Off the Radar.
This is Off the Radar. I'm Captain Weston Rich, an Observer Coach Trainer for the Green Berets at the National Training Center. Welcome to this special collaboration with Pineland Underground, the United States Army John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School podcast. In this two-part episode, Burro Team partners with the Pineland Underground crew to share insights into lessons learned and ways to prepare for rotations at the National Training Center or Joint Readiness Training Center. This episode covers what Special Operations Training Detachment is, what a rotation can look like, and how to prepare for a rotation.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Pineland Underground podcast. Clay Coash, my friend, what is up?
How you doing, Jim?
Good. How you been?
Man, busy. We picked up another class. We had just graduated around last time you and I had a chance to talk. We are pretty much midway through cycle on the next SLC class. So it's just been nonstop.
Yeah.
Going and going and going. But
Same here, man. I'm excited to be here today because we are sitting down with representatives from the USAJFKSWC Special Operations Training Detachment, better known as SOTD. And this portion of SOTD and these individuals are out in a beautiful place called Fort Irwin, the National Training Center. You ever heard of it? You ever been there?
Yeah.
You ever dabbled?
I did. I dabbled in Irwin. Wait, that didn't sound good. No, I've been to Fort Irwin before.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Not exactly a great experience for me, but definitely a learning experience every bloody time.
Well, this one's got a soft twist, right? And it's got a special operations twist to what these guys are doing out here. So without any further ado, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We got three outstanding Green Beret individuals in the room. So Major Phil Ficken, good buddy of mine from 5th Special Forces Group, please lead the
Jim.
charge. Good
Thank
to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. Great to be here on the podcast. Appreciate you having us.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I'm Major Phil Ficken. I'm the OIC out at the Special Operations Training Detachment at NTC. And hey, you know what? I started off in the infantry, found my way into Special Forces, had some good times at 5th Group, and now out at the Special Operations Training Detachment. Probably the job that I never knew I wanted.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. I've been out there for about 2 years right now, and always something new to learn every day. And we get a lot of good training out there. But yeah, thanks for having us on today.
Of course, man. Good to see you again, as always.
Yeah, good to see you.
Small world. Sergeant Wade.
Yeah. So I'm Sergeant First Class Wade, Keith Wade, coming out of 1st Group. At 1st Group, my first team was 1323, and then I did a little bit of time. I did a couple of years in the Sniper Detachment, and then came from ODA 1222 before I came out to NTC. And I'm coming up on about 2 years at NTC.
Nice.
So,
good deal.
Yeah.
So out there, you're cadre. At what level? What are you usually doing day to day?
So we're OTCs.
Okay.
Observer Coach Trainer.
Gotcha. Okay.
For our specifically soft counterparts.
So for everyone out there listening, units come to you guys, and you're basically exactly what you said: lead, coach, mentoring, evaluating them as they go through this journey.
Yes.
Well, we do like to say there's no E in OCT. So and that is something that's different on the soft side than on the conventional force side, if you've ever been out there, because, really we observe, coach, train. Our mission is to make the teams better, help them to improve, help them to figure out how to fight in a large scale combat operation type scenario.
That's really interesting. Not to hijack the intros here, but again, being an infantry guy before, I remember this being like a stress test of units going out to the National Training Center and being like, this is my coup de grace. I have to perform well or else I'm not validated.
Right.
And then I cannot go and deploy in the global war on terror, right? In a world where the global war on terror is kind of died down, I see it as in the conventional mindset, like I have to do well at this, like amplify the pressure cooker, on myself and my unit to perform. So that's really cool to hear that you guys are just like, hey, this is what I saw. This is what I saw you guys do. Take what you will do with it and hopefully get better, hopefully continue to perform well. So that's awesome. It's not like a rake you across the coals type of event.
Yeah, it's not an evaluation. Units do choose sometimes to evaluate themselves.
Sure.
A group might send folks as evaluators, but that is definitely not our...
You guys provide the venue. Yeah,
we provide the venue, we facilitate the training, and we help you see yourself, help you get better, meet you where you're at.
Yeah, and just give them the raw data. And
that's right.
Like Jim said, hey, you will do with this whatever you're going to do with it, whatever decisions, corrections, recock and send them through again. But it's on that unit, it's on that individual.
That's right.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, we try to kind of do away with that stigma of the OCT's out to get you. It's really primarily safeties. That's like first and foremost. We're out there as safeties, but then obviously providing valuable observations and feedback.
And like I said, my small dabbling in NTC, like safety, like you said, there are some creatures out there. There are some creatures that will get some spiders the size of your hand and stuff. Yeah. So
nightmare.
Your country thanks you for your service.
Yeah, it's actually the desert tortoise though that is.
Oh, don't get me started with that, dude. Have you heard about this thing?
I've heard
oh
about
my
it.
gosh!
Okay,
it'll stop a tank battalion in its tracks.
Yeah.
This thing is formidable.
I think it's a cryptid. It's got to be. I've been fairly far and fairly
How
wide.
is it still
I've
alive?
been out there so many times. I have never seen one of these things.
Oh, really?
I think it's right up there with Mothman.
I've seen
it's
in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's the red cockaded woodpecker of
Now.
California.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
There's a tree in this office right here with that marker. Yeah.
With
Endangered species.
All right. Well, Rich, or Captain Rich. Sorry, I'm reading the uniform. Weston.
Yeah.
Welcome, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I appreciate it, sir. Name's Captain Weston Rich, and I commissioned out of the University of New Hampshire into the infantry, went to 4th Brigade, 25th, up in Alaska, deployed with them in 2018 to Afghanistan. And then I went to the SFQC, got first group, and I was the Detachment Commander for 1333 for almost 2 years. Got some great times with them and came down on orders to go be an Observer Coach Trainer down at NTC. I did that for a little over a year, and I'm now actually the SOF's Plans Chief. So I work with the upcoming rotations and any units coming to NTC 3 months or more out, and just helping make sure that their METs are baked into the scenario, and that they come and they can execute not only what USASOC is saying, these are the training objectives you're going to do, but then they get a little bit of their own METs in there, so it can be kind of a PMT-esque, but not always. As Major Ficken said, they can bring out their own evaluators. OCTs are not evaluators, but we do provide, a objective feedback, and that's through verbal and written after-action reviews.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll say I think people probably don't appreciate some of the backside that goes into these rotations. I mean, the amount of planning and preparation and coordination that happens before left a bang, so to speak, is immense. And we have about half of the team works in the planning section, about the other half working in the Observer Coach Trainer kind of current ops.
No, yeah, Phil. I mean, that's a common denominator in SOF, just for our audience out there. Like previous episodes we've had here on the Underground, where we're talking about Robin Sage, we're talking about all the very detailed planning that goes into every session of that experience, right? And it's no different from what you guys are. And again, here's a little, special operations recruiting sales pitch. Like, we plan better, right? And then those who plan better, in my mind, tend to execute better. And you guys are a testament to that. So glad to have all three of you here today. Thanks for flying across the country, being here, and getting business done. And we appreciate you being here. So tell me a little bit. We did just then talk a lot about what kind of SOTD is, but tell me a little bit more about like how you guys are organized and the day-to-day mission. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I can take that. So SOTD is really, there's two detachments, so to speak. Our headquarters is actually at Fort Johnson, Louisiana at JRTC. We got an 05 headquarters there. But there's 2 AOBs. We call them AOB East, AOB West. So AOB East covers training at JRTC. AOB West, which is where we're from, Burro team, if you've heard us called that. We're out at NTC, and each of us is essentially doing the same mission. 2 different venues. We also sometimes support JPMRC Alaska and Hawaii rotations, infrequently, maybe once a year, twice a year max on that. But really 8 for us at NTC, 8 to 10 rotations a year, supporting SOF, training alongside conventional forces in a large-scale combat operation, immersive force-on-force scenario. And it's a pretty cool environment to train in. I don't know of any other place other than the combined training centers where you can do this, because at NTC, we literally have the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment who plays the enemy forces. We call them Black Horse.
Yep.
Yeah, they play the enemy forces, and you got brigade on brigade tank battles happening in the training area. And meanwhile, the special operations folks are doing their job to help support that joint force maneuver in that combat operation. And so really that's our job.
Yeah.
We facilitate it. We run our own exercise control. We have OCTs with every element, as Keith mentioned, both for the safety piece as well as to help them see themselves, provide them critical feedback, help them grow and get better, share the lessons learned that we see rotation. That's really what we do at its core.
And I'll add that we do special operations training holistically. So the 3 of us are Green Berets, but we do special forces, civil affairs, PSYOPs, Ranger, SOAR, and then our joint SOF if they come, and then any partners and allies, special operations that come out.
Yep.
We've hosted 5 partners recently, so it is a holistic approach.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, because are they usually coming hand in hand with a kind of like a 5th group or a 3rd group, or they're coming with them, or are they coming solely by themselves?
They're coming with, typically, yeah.
Excellent.
Which is what we want.
Exactly.
We want to be able to work together with them and
cool.
build that compatibility.
And typically, or at least my experience, when we get a partner allied SOF entity, it's because the conventional unit also has that same partner or ally conventional force working with them, whether that's ROC, like Korean, or UK, or just any of our partners or allies that come. So
very cool.
Very.
Yeah.
I mean, the interoperability piece is just absolutely essential. I mean, I know I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, but for everyone that's listening to this, there is a whole different side of what we do, and it does require the assistance and the buy-in, and sometimes depending on what level, the support of that partner. So yeah, it's great to hear that they're able to come out and train alongside those conventional units as well as the SOF units. It's a good thing to see. It was not always the case.
No, and it's needed too. I mean, there's so much, like you said, figuring out how do we talk to each other, how do we get our systems to work with each other. Hey, they've got a different vehicle. How do we keep this vehicle up and running whenever something breaks down and we're working together? All these things. I mean, we have the same problems between special operations forces and conventional forces.
Sure.
That's a huge part of the training, every single rotation as well.
So you guys, again, for clarity to our listeners out there, we're dropping a ton of acronyms. I'll do my best to try to keep up on cyclic and keep up with it. But we said LSCO, right? Large scale combat operations. So, and Phil, you mentioned, there's full scale brigade on brigade, tank battles going on. If I'm a special forces team leader, or I'm a special forces company commander, or any part of the special operations world, how do I integrate into that tank battle? Where does that linkage occur? What do you guys do to facilitate that?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I answer that, really, I think I want to answer the question you didn't ask too, because we really have a couple of different echelons of exercises that we run.
Oh yeah.
Our typical exercise will have a brigade in typically armored striker, something like that, come out and train on the conventional side. But they'll go up to division headquarters level out there at NTC. And we typically once a year have what we call our division rotation. They'll even bring out a core TAC to help run the C2 over top of that division. But really no more than one maneuver brigade in our training area, the box, as we call it, at a time. So kind of those echelons on the conventional side. For special operations, our typical rotation will have a company level headquarters and some teams below that. But we, once a year, usually partnered with the division rotations, will have a special operations task force or battalion level headquarters come out. And once a year, we do what we call our all ARSOF rotation. We're about to go do that at JRTC here this month, but we'll have either a special forces group, Ranger Regiment, or one of the special operations elements come out, and that there's no conventional force for that. But that's once a year, and that's either at JRTC or NTC. We kind of flip it back and forth year by year. So those are the echelons. But to answer your question, Jim, what is a detachment doing out in NTC? And it all revolves around what is SOF's role in LSCO. And, ultimately our overarching mission in LSCO is how do we support joint force maneuver? That's what it comes down to. But what that means is that we're going to have detachments that are punching into the deep operations area behind enemy lines and doing everything from deep sensing, helping, we're the only ones back there who are able to see from the ground what the enemy's doing, where their key targets are. And that when we say deep sensing, that's really what we're talking about, kind of that greater reconnaissance mission behind enemy lines. We're targeting high payoff targets in that deep operations area. And really, what are the targets that are going to best enable the friendly force plan? Like, that's what we're doing. We're knocking out, maybe it's a enemy air defense piece or EW jammer or something that we need to take out to enable a plan. Like those are things that we're doing. And then the third thing, kind of the third bin that we do a lot, is enabling multi-domain operations in the deep operations area. So that includes space operations, cyber operations, electronic warfare, kind of the gamut of effects enabling those.
So what I'm hearing is if you're a SOF element, you get a playground basically to test out a lot of the things that are bestowed upon you in your team room. Like, hey, here's this new widget.
Sure.
Put it to use. Tell us if it's good or bad, and apply it to whatever mission set you're training up for.
And those three things that Major Ficken just discussed, I mean, they can be executed unilaterally, but they are most effective when you work through partners and allies, whether that's the host nation military that you're partnered with when you're at JRTC or NTC, or it's some kind of network that you have access to. Because it doesn't have to be a U.S. soldier doing the thing to make the effect happen.
No, that's awesome. I mean, multi-domain, like that's what we're trying to control, right? We're trying to control. A lot of our great power adversaries out there are definitely in that space, pun intended. So I mean, we gotta practice being good at that. And you guys provide that venue. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to do that stuff, but I think probably a totally different topic of conversation is ultimately none of it works if we don't do the basics right. And we see that time and time again. And, I think it's a risk for us to get too focused on, multi-domain or any kind of advanced capability or effect that we want to have. We want to do those things, but we have to layer it on being really good at the basics.
No, that's and before we went hot on the mics here, I was talking to you guys a little bit about previous episodes and stuff where I literally had folks sitting in the seats here, and he's gonna laugh when I say this. A crusty old sergeant major going, "Hey sir, I know you're talking about all this crazy, whiz bang gadgetry and stuff. I want the boys digging foxholes, using proper cover and concealment, being good with their partner force, and not being on their cell phones." Right. So that segues into a perfect thing. Keith, talk to me a little bit about some good and bad things you've seen from an OCT level, while you guys are in the box, as you guys call it out there. What are some things you're observing that may or may not be doing the basics right?
Yeah. So simply put, the teams that do the best planning and preparation, they're the most successful out there. It is, it's a dynamic battlefield, especially with all the developing technologies and all the different skill sets that teams are expected to keep up. JTAC currency, sending guys now to robotics courses, drone pilots, and all these other skill sets that we're trying to maintain. But simply put, like Major Ficken said, the teams that do the basics well, they're the most successful out there. Yep. And that's not just planning and preparation before they infill in the box. It's once they're out there, once they're in their patrol bases, once they're in their MSS, and I'd say a common critique that we get out, or that I see out there, is especially the use of cell phones, use of the ATAC or TAC phones. A lot of times, and I think the same is true at the AOB level.
Yeah,
the teams that utilize analog products a little more, the communication across the team is usually better. Especially if, because it's just kind of a natural thing. If
you're forced to look at that acetate board.
Yeah,
right.
You have to, and it's much easier for the junior Bravo, the junior Charlie, the junior Echo that's coming and going from the C2 tent or the C2 vehicle, instead of having to tap his team leader on the shoulder and be like, "Hey, sir, can I get a look at your phone?" Having that analog product that he can just get that update immediately. Yep. I'd say that's a pretty common critique. Usually rotation after rotation.
Because, I guess I'm just jumping to conclusions here, but phones give off light at night, not good. I know enemy sees where you're at, and then you're maybe dealing with some artillery or something after
things
that.
Can get interesting really quick.
This is me, PTSD,
Well, that's also
already Sims start flying,
It's a more collaborative type of environment when you've got an analog product, because any of the digital products, whether it's on a computer or a phone, it sucks you in, and it's really one person can look at it at a time. So you can't talk about it with your buddy or your team. It's very difficult to plan off of it. It's kind of the digital products that we worked off of over more than 20 years of GWAT, in a big hard stand CP where we're able to project stuff on the wall and kind of do the collaborative environment in that way. When you're living out of a truck in an expeditionary posture, it's a totally different scenario. That analog product goes a long way. That's really your best collaborative environment, because like you said, you don't want to put a projector up and shine a bunch of light out on the battlefield.
Well, and then I just had a great acid flashback as well, and I think this pertains to psychological operations as well.
Oh, dear.
I know. I'm going to try. Bear with me on this thought train. When we're talking about partner forces too, right?
Oh, sure.
They're maybe not they're most likely not going to have the same, Lickies and Chewies, technologically advanced toys that we have. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to train them on an unsustainable platform of some kind, whether it's a cool digital device or a weapon system, and you're like, "See you guys later, have fun," not having that same capability, and now I'm going to leave. We're not doing ourselves any good service as it pertains to psychological operations, product development, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. See, I learned something from one time.
Oh, you were paying attention. Okay.
Yeah. So, you're not going to use certain products to persuade and influence a target audience if that target audience doesn't use the platforms that you're using it on.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I think that's great. You got to be good at the basics.
Yeah, and I'd say another observation along with that is, 20 years of fighting, for lack of a better term, dirt farmers, guys with AKs and ICOMs. This environment is, your adversary has extremely long-ranging imaging systems, on these armored vehicles. And so now you're getting into concealment's a very big deal. Not just line of sight, but overhead as well, because now we've got drones and we've got enemy air. So it's a dynamic environment, and I would say that's another common critique we see a lot. For years, teams have just been used to piling all their weapons and everything into gun trucks and just driving around. It's different in this environment.
Yep.
No, Keith, you got me thinking again. I think we've all felt the frustration of not being able to successfully either lethally or non-kinetically targets an adversary like we'd like to, because they're actually not using technology, or they are not. They are caveman style in it, and it's not computing with our targeting systems. Right? We're like, we can't find you, dude, because you are so good at concealing yourself, but really they're just doing the basics right.
Yeah. Cover and concealment applies.
Yes.
You find something off natural lines of drift, you're using your camo nets. I mean, out in the desert, you think of it's pretty wide open in the Mojave Desert.
Yeah.
We've got 10, 20, 30 kilometers between major terrain features in some places. It's wide open. But there's tons of micro terrain.
Absolutely.
Sure.
The teams that do a really good job of using that terrain to mask themselves, using their camo nets and using good camouflage, like that's really, I mean, that's what Keith's getting after.
For all my infantry officer basic course lieutenants out there, use your
right.
IV lines.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
So I have a quick story on that. I was OCing a 5th group team, 1 rotation, and a lot of people that aren't familiar with maneuvering in vehicles just like pile in the truck and drive and like think they're kind of impervious while they're in the vehicle, and then they get out. Well, all the basic maneuver TTPs apply, mounted or dismounted. In this particular team, they were going after an integrated air defense target. Unfortunately, they got bad intel on its location, and they wandered into the front line of the enemy force, their CAV screen line. However, they were maneuvering appropriately, stopping before IV lines, cresting the hill dismounted and looking through optics at night. And they were able to see, there's one truck up ahead, and they creep up to it. All of our Black Horse were asleep at the time, so kudos to them. They got some knife kills.
Red lines across the throat, baby.
Yeah, and then they moved on and they found a
Horse is
second truck,
favorite
and then
target.
after they spotted the third truck, they were like, "I think we're in the wrong location," and they used good intel assessment of enemy order of battle, and they were like, "We need to beat feet out of here," and they made the right decision to leave, but. They did get 2 trucks of knife kills and shot a javelin and ran away. So
awesome.
Good effects and no casualties on their side because they were doing the basic maneuver correctly.
So we talked, we talked a lot about Black Horse, right, out there, and kind of that integration that happens on a normal Special Forces ARSOF rotation out there, right? What's the integration look like for the ARSOF folks that are bringing conventional forces there with them as, ride or die, blue or green allies in the scenario versus the opposing force integration that's going on naturally via, you make friends really quick, knife killing people at night,
Yeah.
So, but like, how does that look like? I guess my question is, how does that look like for the soft folks that are bringing conventional folks in there to train with them? Is that happening a lot?
So they can arrange for bringing their own partner force, and typically in the scenario that would look like a green element, the host nation, whatever our scenario is. So the host nation name can change based on the scenario that we're running.
Sure.
But they would be host nation partner force, typically from a SOF or conventional unit. It's not like they're standing up a resistance force. They're using soldiers that are trained, and then we have retired Green Beret CA PSYOP soldiers that are contractors now, and they play the leadership of that battalion, and they partner with the AOB and the teams, and they provide teach, coach, or mentor in role. So like the OCTs will mentor and coach the teams, but really we rely on the role players who have, each have 20 plus years of experience on a detachment or in their respective regiment, and then they provide the in-scenario coaching. So when they're using their ATAC too much, the role player comes up and says, "Oh, I don't have that. Like, can you show me on the map?"
Yeah,
and trying to tease that out of them. Yes, exactly. So like,
very cool.
Our elements that are working on the blue side, the friendly coalition, don't typically integrate at the detachment level with the conventional unit. We have a liaison element that sits at the brigade or the division staff, and then the AOB will interface with the brigade or the division. So I'll kick that over to Keith or Major Ficken, whoever wants to.
Well, and I think to pile on your point too, if you come out with a partner force, or we'll try and recruit folks to come out and play those partner force elements. But we've got partner force that might be military. We might have surrogate elements set up out there for you to work with. There's a whole network of civilians and government officials, State Department, embassy type folks. So a lot of variety, and not just for the special forces folks. We talk about like the civil network for civil affairs teams. that's pretty robust out at NTC. You get to go, in some cases, for example, do critical infrastructure assessment at a real life power plant or fuel depot or airport. We've got tons of options for stuff like that. We've got information environment, both we've got digital, news media, print media, along with other ways to disseminate messaging. Our PsyOpers will play in all those domains and some. So lots of different options there for sure.
That's exciting. Awesome. It sounds like it's changed quite a bit since the last time I was there. It was a bit more austere.
No, yeah.
It's a way better cruise package now. Yeah.
It has.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, it's really transitioned over probably the last 5 years from the GWAT style really now to this large scale combat operations scenario we have now. So it has evolved quite a bit.
Thank you for joining us on this special episode with Pineland Underground. Please tune in next week when we conclude this interview and discuss more lessons learned and highlight successes at the National Training Center. Thank you for listening to Off the Radar, where ARSOF prepares for conflict. Like, subscribe, and share on your listening platform.
Actions will determine the outcome.